The council chamber smelled of old parchment and dying candles. King Marcus Ashcrown stood alone at 3 a.m, studying maps of his kingdom he had memorized years ago. Sleep was a luxury he could no longer afford. Every time he closed his eyes, the smoke returned. Every time he dreamed, the fire consumed him again. His hand traced the northwestern border on the map display. The Blackwater Kingdom had been testing their defenses for weeks now. Small incursions. Nothing that warranted full military response, but enough to signal intent. It was the kind of pressure that demanded a ruler with his full attention, the kind of threat that required strategic thinking instead of grief. But grief was all Marcus had left. The royal bond mark burned across his chest like a brand that refused to heal. 5 years since the fire. 5 years since they told him Queen Seraphine was dead. 5 years of phantom pain that shouldn't exist if she was truly gone. The bond was supposed to fade with death. That was the law of royal bloodlines. When one bonded mate died, the connection dissolved. The surviving royal felt the severance like a blade through the heart, and then nothing. Clean absence. Marcus's bond had never gone silent. It burned. Every single day it burned. The candle on his desk guttered, sending smoke curling toward the vaulted ceiling. The scent hit him like a fist. Suddenly he was back in the royal chambers, flames crawling up silk curtains, Seraphine's voice screaming his name, his guards pulling him backward while he fought them with everything he had, the taste of ash in his mouth, the sound of the ceiling crashing down where she had been. He forced his eyes open, forced air into his lungs. The council chamber solidified around him. Present. Real. Not 5 years ago. Not burning. But his hands were shaking. A knock at the door. Marcus straightened, wiped the sweat from his face, pulled the mask of kingship over features that felt like they might crack. The door opened to reveal Lord Cade Thornfield, his Lord Commander, his brother in all the ways that mattered. Cade took one look at him and said nothing for a long moment. Then quietly, the words that had become ritual between them. "You haven't slept. I've been reviewing the Blackwater situation." "Your Majesty, you've been reviewing the Blackwater situation for 16 hours. Marcus turned back to the maps. "They're planning something. The pattern is wrong. These aren't random tests. They're probing for weaknesses." Cade moved to stand beside him. After 15 years of fighting together, first as young knights and now as king and commander, there was a language between them that required no words. Cade saw what Marcus saw. The pattern. The intent behind seemingly scattered movements. "You're right," Cade said, "but you can't address it if you collapse from exhaustion. The morning council session is in 3 hours. I'll rest after." "You said that yesterday, and the day before." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I don't need sleep. I need solutions." "What you need," Cade said carefully, "is what we all need, but we can't have her back." The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's hands flattened on the table, pressing down as if he could push through wood and stone to something solid, something that wouldn't slip away. "The session," he said. 3 hours. Make sure Grand Chancellor Ashwood is prepared with his assessment." Cade hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty." The door closed behind him, and Marcus was alone again with maps and memories and pain that had no name. The morning council chamber filled with nobles and advisors as dawn broke over the palace spires. Marcus sat at the head of the table, freshly shaved, royal vestments precise, every inch the king his realm needed him to be. If his eyes burned from lack of sleep, if his hands wanted to tremble, no one would see it. Kingship was performance. He had learned that the hard way. Grand Chancellor Victor Ashwood entered last, moving with the confidence of a man who had spent 30 years earning his authority. At 52, Victor was a legend, a strategist whose political maneuvers were studied by royal courts across the continent, a counselor who had served 3 kings before Marcus. If anyone had earned the right to speak freely, it was Victor. He took his seat across from Marcus and met his eyes with something that might have been concern or calculation. Marcus had stopped being able to tell the difference. "Border situation," Marcus said without preamble. "Grand Chancellor, your assessment." Victor spread intelligence reports across the table. Border patrol logs, incident maps, reports from the skirmishes, 3 dead in the past month, all routine encounters that had turned lethal. Nothing that screamed coordinated attack, everything that whispered careful planning. "Blackwater Kingdom is testing our response time," Victor said. "They want to know how long it takes us to mobilize, where our weak points are, which border lords can be baited into overreaction." Recommendations? We need to demonstrate strength, a decisive response that reminds them why they've respected our borders for 3 generations. Marcus studied the maps, saw what Victor saw, and something more. They're trying to draw us out. If we respond in force, we leave other sections vulnerable. That's what they're counting on. Victor's expression shifted slightly. With respect, Your Majesty, if we don't respond in force, we signal weakness. A kingdom without a queen is already vulnerable in the eyes of other realms. We cannot afford to appear indecisive. The words landed like they always did. Clinical, accurate, devastating. Cade spoke up from his position at Marcus's right. The king has held this realm for 5 years without a queen. His leadership has been more than sufficient. His leadership has been remarkable, Victor said smoothly, considering his circumstances. But we cannot ignore reality. The other kingdoms are watching. They see an unmarried king. They wonder about succession, about stability. It's not a criticism, Your Majesty. It's simply the nature of our world. Marcus heard the unspoken words beneath. They wonder if you're strong enough. They wonder if grief has compromised you. They're right to wonder. We increase border patrols, Marcus decided. Double the guard rotations in the northwestern provinces. But we don't commit to full military engagement. Not yet. I want them to think we're vulnerable while we gather intelligence on their actual objectives. Victor nodded slowly. A measured approach, though I would still recommend considering the succession question for the good of the realm. Noted, Marcus said, voice flat. Dismissed. The chamber emptied. Cade lingered. He's not entirely wrong, Cade said quietly. I know, but he's not entirely right either. Marcus looked at his friend, his brother, the man who had tried to reach him 5 years ago when the palace wing came down, who still carried that failure like a stone in his chest. Do you ever dream about it? Marcus asked. Cade didn't need to ask about what. Every night. Do you dream you saved her? A long pause, then barely audible. Yes. So do I, Marcus said. Every single night I save her. And every morning I wake up and she's still gone. Cade's hand found Marcus's shoulder, grip firm, the kind of contact that said everything words couldn't. We should have reached you both faster, Cade said. Maybe if I had... Don't. Marcus's voice was rough. Don't carry that. The fire took her. Not you, not our response time. The fire. But even as he said it, Marcus wondered. The bond that wouldn't stop burning. The feeling that had never faded. 5 years of everyone telling him to accept her death, while his body insisted she was still out there somewhere. Grief made you see things that weren't there. Grief made you imagine connections that had been severed. Everyone said so. The afternoon council meeting brought a different kind of pressure. Victor had requested time to address the realm's future. Marcus knew what was coming before the chancellor's mouth opened. The Autumn Harvest Festival, Victor said, is in 2 days. It would be good for morale if you attended. Marcus had attended the festival every year for a decade. First as a young king trying to earn his people's trust. Then as a bonded ruler, Seraphine at his side, their connection visible to everyone in the way they moved together. After the fire, the festival had become something to endure, a performance of normalcy that left him hollow. I'll consider it, Marcus said. The people need to see you engaged with life, Victor pressed. Not haunted by death. No disrespect to Queen Seraphine's memory, but 5 years is substantial. The realm needs to know their king is looking forward, not backward. Around the table, council members shifted uncomfortably. No one wanted to discuss the king's grief. No one wanted to appear disloyal to their fallen queen's memory. But the truth hung in the air anyway. They were worried. About him. About the kingdom. About what happened to a realm led by a broken man. I'll attend the festival, Marcus said. Decision made. Another performance scheduled. Another day of pretending the world made sense without her in it. Thank you, Your Majesty, Victor said. And beneath the gratitude, something else. Relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. Marcus went to Seraphine's memorial that evening. A marble monument in the palace gardens where she had once grown herbs for healing. Where she had taught him the names of plants and laughed at his terrible memory. Where they had lain in summer grass and planned futures that would never arrive. Her name carved in stone, dates that bracketed too short a life, words that meant nothing and everything. Beloved queen, devoted mate, forever remembered. Marcus knelt on the grass before her monument. Let his hand rest on cold marble. Felt nothing. No presence. No peace. Just the same burning absence that had defined 5 years. They want me to move on, he said to the silence. Victor thinks I should take a new queen. For the good of the realm. For stability. For all the practical reasons that make sense to everyone but me. The wind moved through the gardens. Somewhere, a bird called. Life continued its relentless march while Marcus remained frozen in the moment the ceiling came down. "I can't," he whispered. "I can't let you go. The bond, Seraphine, it still burns. Every single day. It's not supposed to do that. When a mate dies, the bond fades, but mine hasn't. And I don't know if that means I'm broken, or if something else is wrong, if everyone lied, if you're out there somewhere and I'm here like a fool talking to a stone." No answer came, just wind and birdsong and the weight of unanswerable questions. "Forgive me," Marcus said finally, "for living without you, for not being strong enough to save you, for everything I should have been and wasn't." He rose, straightened his royal vestments, pulled the mask back into place. Tomorrow was the festival. Tomorrow he would be the king his people needed. Strong, present, unbroken. Tomorrow he would lie to everyone, including himself. The harvest festival transformed the capital square into a celebration of abundance. Merchants displayed their finest goods. Musicians played songs of plenty. Children chased each other between stalls, their laughter echoing off cobblestones worn smooth by countless generations. It was life in its purest form, joy without shadow, community without fracture. Marcus moved through it like a ghost given form. He had brought a 3-man royal guard, force of habit, the kind of strategic thinking that never shut off even at a peaceful gathering. Cade walked at his right, scanning the crowd with trained eyes. 2 younger guards flanked them, alert for threats that wouldn't materialize at a village celebration, but couldn't be entirely dismissed. People bowed as Marcus passed, offered greetings, presented gifts of bread and blessed harvest herbs. Their faces showed respect, but also something else. Pity, perhaps, or concern for a king who still moved through the world like a man walking through a tomb. Marcus accepted each offering with quiet grace, understood that his presence here meant something to them, that leadership was more than political decisions and border security. It was showing up, being seen, letting his people know their king was still capable of existing in sunlight instead of just council chambers and memorial gardens. A puppet show had drawn a crowd of children near the square's center. Marcus found himself watching. Wooden knights battling dragons, simple stories of heroism and victory, the kind of tales that made sense before the world taught you that sometimes the dragon won, sometimes the knight burned, and no amount of courage changed the ending. He thought of heirs he would never have, children he and Seraphine had planned for, names they'd chosen in whispered conversations, a future that had died in flame and smoke. The ache in his chest intensified. Marcus turned to leave, to escape back to the palace where grief was private and performance wasn't required. He'd attended the festival, showed his face, done what Victor wanted. He could go now. That's when something small and warm collided with his legs. Marcus looked down to find a child, a girl, perhaps 6 years old, with dark hair and eyes the exact shade of gray-green that haunted his dreams. She had stumbled backward from the collision, and now she stared up at him with a mix of surprise and curiosity that held no fear. The world stopped. Every sound faded to meaningless noise. Every face in the crowd blurred to nothing. There was only this child, looking up at him with eyes he knew, eyes he had memorized, eyes that belonged to the queen everyone insisted was dead. The little girl smiled, bright, innocent, unaware she had just shattered everything Marcus thought he knew about reality. "Oh," she said, "you have the moon mark like my mama." Her small finger pointed to his throat, to the crescent-shaped royal bond mark that should have faded 5 years ago, the mark that connected him to a woman whose ashes were supposed to be scattered in the memorial garden. Marcus couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every sense he possessed as one of royal bloodline surged forward with desperate recognition, flooding his awareness with information his conscious mind couldn't process. The child's scent hit him like revelation. Lavender and spring rain, yes, but underneath, woven through everything, a bloodline he would know across any distance. Seraphine's bloodline, his bloodline, their daughter. The bond mark on his chest exploded into searing heat. After 5 years of dull burning, it suddenly blazed with the intensity of a fresh wound. Connection, recognition, truth that destroyed every lie he'd been living. Cade's hand was on his arm, steadying him. Marcus didn't remember his knees going weak, but somehow Cade was holding him upright while the world rebuilt itself around impossible facts. "Your Majesty," Cade's voice came from very far away. "Marcus, what's wrong?" Marcus forced words through a throat that wanted to close. "What's your name?" The child tilted her head, considering him with that direct way children had before life taught them to be cautious. "Emma." "Emma," he repeated. The name tasted like hope and devastation mixed together. "Where is your mother?" Emma's face brightened. She pointed toward the herb stalls at the market's far edge. "She's buying healing plants. We're visiting for the festival." Then she was gone, darting back toward her friends at the puppet show. Leaving Marcus standing in the center of the crowded square, his entire existence cracking open around him. "Did you hear?" Marcus couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't form the question, couldn't articulate what had just happened. Cade's expression was troubled. "Your Majesty," the child said. "She has Seraphine's eyes. Grief can make us see." "No." Marcus's voice cut through like a blade. "Not grief, not imagination. Cade, I recognized her bloodline. I know that scent. I know my own royal line. That child is—" He stopped. Saying it aloud would make it real, would force him to confront what it meant. "I have to find her mother." His legs moved without conscious command. Royal Guard forgotten. Festival forgotten. Everything forgotten except the desperate need to follow the thread that child had revealed. To find the woman buying herbs at the market's edge. To see for himself if the impossible was somehow, against all reason and evidence, true. Marcus pushed through the crowd, every enhanced sense he possessed as royal bloodline, searching for a presence he'd memorized in the years they'd had together. Lavender and midnight jasmine, and something uniquely Seraphine that had haunted him through 5 years of absence. He caught it near the herb stalls, faint, barely there, but unmistakable. And then he saw her. Seraphine stood with her back to him, hood drawn up against the autumn wind, selecting dried plants from a merchant's display. She moved with the same fluid grace he remembered, same height, same build. The way she turned her head to examine a bundle of herbs was exactly, precisely the movement he'd seen 1,000 times before. Every carefully constructed belief about reality shattered like glass. Marcus took a step forward, then another, closing the distance between dead and alive, between loss and recovery, between 5 years of grief and one impossible moment of truth. Seraphine must have felt his presence, must have recognized him through whatever sense connected bonded mates even across death. She went absolutely still. Her shoulders tensed. And then, slowly, she turned. Their eyes met across 20 feet of crowded market. Hers were exactly as he remembered, gray-green like storm clouds over forest, wide and beautiful and filled not with joy or relief but with pure primal terror. "Seraphine," Marcus breathed. She grabbed the herbs without paying, spun away from him, started moving fast through the crowd, weaving between merchants and shoppers with the kind of tactical evasion that spoke of practice, of planning for this exact scenario. She was running from him. His queen was alive, and she was running from him like he was the threat. Marcus gave chase without thinking. His royal bloodline enhanced speed carried him through the crowd faster than any common person could move. He dodged around merchants and leaped over display crates, keeping Seraphine in sight as she fled toward the market's edge. People shouted in surprise. His guards called after him. None of it mattered. Seraphine reached an alley and disappeared into shadow. Marcus followed, heart hammering against his ribs. The alley opened onto another street, then another, a maze of passages that Seraphine navigated with obvious familiarity, while Marcus struggled to track her through visual markers and scent alone. She was good. Whatever she'd been doing for 5 years, evasion was clearly part of it. Despite having no access to her full royal abilities, she moved like a trained operative, using angles and barriers and crowd cover to break line of sight, doubling back, creating false trails. Marcus almost lost her twice, but the bond wouldn't let him. The connection that had burned for 5 years suddenly blazed like a beacon, pulling him toward her with magnetic force. His body knew where she was, even when his eyes couldn't find her. She burst from an alley onto the main road. Marcus was 30 feet behind. He called her name, shouted it with everything in him, poured 5 years of grief and rage and desperate love into the syllables. "Seraphine, stop!" She glanced back. Their eyes met for one heartbeat. Hers held something he couldn't name. Pain, guilt, anger, 1,000 emotions that made no sense for a reunion that should have been joy. Then she was gone, into the forest, through undergrowth that swallowed her like smoke. By the time Marcus reached the tree line, she had vanished completely. He stood at the forest's edge, every enhanced sense searching for trace of her. Found nothing. His howl split the afternoon air. Pain and fury and loss combined into a sound that carried across the valley, a sound his realm would hear and understand without translation. Their king's heart was breaking, again. When Cade found him, Marcus was still standing at the forest edge, staring into trees that held no answers. His guards had caught up, breathing hard, weapons drawn against threats that didn't exist. "Your Majesty," Cade said carefully. "What happened?" "I saw her." Marcus's voice was hollow, empty of everything except certainty. "Seraphine, I saw her. She's alive." "Marcus, don't." He turned to face his oldest friend, his brother, the man who would follow him into any hell. "Don't tell me it was someone who looked like her. Don't tell me grief made me imagine it. I know what I saw. I know what I sensed. The child. Emma. She's our daughter, Cade. She has the royal bond mark. She told me her mother has one too. And I saw Seraphine. I saw my queen. She's alive." Cade's expression was complex, wanting to believe, wanting to protect Marcus from another heartbreak, caught between loyalty and pragmatism. "If Queen Seraphine is alive," Cade said slowly, "why would she run?" It was the question that mattered, the one that made no sense. A royal bond was sacred, unbreakable. If Seraphine lived, if she had survived somehow, she should have come back, should have found him, should have done anything except flee like he was the enemy, unless something was very, very wrong. "I don't know," Marcus said, "but I'm going to find out." The palace council chamber filled with senior advisors within the hour. Marcus stood at the head of the table, changed from festival clothes into his royal vestments, his face set in lines of absolute determination. If they thought their king had lost his mind, they hid it well. 15 years of following his rule had earned him at least the courtesy of hearing him out. Grand Chancellor Victor Ashwood entered last, his expression troubled. He took his seat across from Marcus and waited. "She's alive," Marcus said without preamble. "Seraphine is alive, in this region, with our daughter." Silence, careful calculated silence that said everything. Victor spoke first. "Your Majesty, I understand the child's words were unsettling, but grief can—" "I saw her myself," Marcus cut him off. "Not the child, Seraphine. I saw my queen with my own eyes, spoke her name, she ran." More silence. Then Cade spoke up, his voice steady with the kind of loyalty that accepted impossible things because his king said they were true. "Orders, Your Majesty?" Marcus looked at him with gratitude he couldn't voice, then turned to the map spread across the table. Time to be what he was trained to be, a strategist, a ruler, a king who dealt in concrete actions instead of overwhelming emotions. "3-team search pattern," Marcus said, falling into the rhythm of strategic planning like a man finding solid ground after drowning. "Lord Commander Thornfield, you'll lead the northern sweep, focus on mountain settlements and hidden valleys. Sir Owen Blackwell will command the eastern provinces search. I'll personally oversee the southern territories." His finger traced routes on the map. Precise, professional, the kind of deployment he'd executed 100 times for border security. Now he was searching for the most precious thing in his world, and the strategy came to him like breathing. "We established checkpoints here, here, and here. Every traveler gets questioned. Merchants, pilgrims, village elders. Someone has seen her. Someone knows where she's been staying." "Rules of engagement?" Cade asked. "She is queen," Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute command. "No harm comes to her under any circumstances. This is recovery, not capture. If anyone so much as frightens her, they answer to me personally." Around the table, advisors nodded. They understood. Victor's expression remained troubled. "And if Queen Seraphine continues to evade contact? If she doesn't wish to be found?" The question landed like a physical blow. Marcus forced himself to meet Victor's eyes. "Then I need to understand why," he said. "The bond doesn't lie. She's my queen. Something made her afraid of me. Something kept her in hiding for 5 years. Something made her run instead of come home. I need to know what that something is." A royal search of this scale, Victor calculated, leaves the capital significantly underprotected. If Blackwater Kingdom chooses this moment to escalate, "They won't," Marcus said flatly. "And if they do, we handle it. But this happens. Seraphine is alive. My daughter exists. Everything else is secondary. The chancellor held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yes, Your Majesty. One more thing, Marcus said. This goes no further than this chamber. If word spreads that the queen lives, questions will arise. Questions about where she's been, why she hid. I want answers before we deal with court politics. Understood, Kate said. Then we move in 2 hours. Dismissed. The chamber emptied. Victor lingered, approaching Marcus with something that looked like genuine concern. I was there that night, Victor said quietly. The fire. I was first to respond when the alarm sounded. I searched every room, Your Majesty. I looked for her. The palace wing came down. No one could have survived. Apparently someone did. Or you're seeing what you desperately want to see, Victor said. Not unkindly. 5 years is a long time to carry grief. Sometimes our minds create what we need in order to survive. Marcus looked at the man who had been his advisor, his mentor, his father's trusted friend. Do you think I've lost my mind? I think you've suffered more than any king should, Victor replied, and I think desperate hope can look very much like certainty. The child had the royal bond mark. Many of royal bloodline have similar markings. The crescent shape is common in our lineage. She had Seraphine's eyes, Seraphine's bloodline scent underneath. Our daughter, Victor. I know my own royal line. Victor's expression was patient. Too patient. The kind reserved for handling the unstable. Then we'll find the truth. Together. But Your Majesty, prepare yourself for the possibility that the truth is painful. That this child's mother resembles Seraphine but isn't her. That coincidence and grief have combined into something that feels like miracle, but is actually just what? Another kind of loss, Victor finished gently. The words hung between them. Marcus wanted to argue, to insist on certainty he felt in his bones and blood. But doubt was its own kind of poison. What if Victor was right? What if 5 years of burning grief had finally broken him completely? No, the bond was real. The burning was real. The child's eyes were real. We deploy in 2 hours, Marcus repeated. Ready your assessment of border security for Cade to review while we're in the field. Victor nodded and left. Marcus stood alone in the council chamber, looking at maps that showed terrain, but not truth. Not the answer to why his queen would run from him. Not the explanation for 5 years of absence. Not the reason the bond had never stopped burning. But maps could be read. Patterns could be found. And Marcus was very, very good at strategy. Seraphine had run to somewhere. That somewhere had a location, a trail, evidence that trained searchers could follow. And when he found her, when he had her somewhere she couldn't flee, they would have the conversation that was 5 years overdue. Whatever secrets she carried, whatever kept her in hiding, whatever made her afraid, he would understand. Even if the truth destroyed him worse than her supposed death had. The search began at dawn the next day. 3 teams deployed with strategic precision. Regular check-ins every hour. Systematic coverage of 40 square miles of territory. They moved through villages and forest, questioned travelers and merchants, followed every lead no matter how thin. The search consumed 3 full days, 72 hours of methodical tracking, of narrowing possibilities, of eliminating hiding places until only one conclusion remained. Cade's northern team found an abandoned cottage on day 2, signs of recent occupation, child's toys left behind, adult-sized clothing that might have fit Seraphine. But the occupants were gone, fled at least 2 days prior, before Marcus even began his search. Sir Owen's eastern team located a village elder who remembered a woman and child passing through 3 months ago. Dark-haired, quiet, bought supplies and left before dawn. No, she didn't say where she was going. Yes, the child was well cared for. Happy even. Marcus's southern team traced the forest route Seraphine had used to escape, found markers that suggested she knew these paths well, had practiced evasion through these exact trees. This wasn't panic flight. This was trained, rehearsed, deliberate strategy. She had been planning for the possibility of discovery, for him finding her, and her contingency was to run. That realization hurt worse than anything else. Seraphine had built a life that included preparations for her own mate discovering her existence, had prepared to run from the bond that should have been sanctuary. Why? By the end of day 3, they had eliminated everywhere except one location, the mountain village of Millbrook. Remote, defensible, a single road in and out. Exactly the kind of location a strategist would choose for a stronghold. She's there, Marcus said, studying the map on the 3rd night. She has to be. We've eliminated everywhere else. Cade leaned over the map, seeing what Marcus saw. It's smart positioning. She'd see us coming from miles away, have time to evacuate if we approach during daylight. So we don't approach during daylight. Night insertion? Teams in position by midnight. Surround the village before dawn. No one enters or leaves without my knowledge. When the sun rises, we'll know every person in that settlement. Cade nodded slowly, then carefully. Your Majesty, if she's been this careful about staying hidden, maybe she has reasons we don't understand yet. Then I'll understand them, Marcus said. But I won't lose her again. Not to fear, not to misunderstanding, not to anything. He looked at his friend, his brother, the man who had carried failure for 5 years because he hadn't been fast enough to save them both. I need you with me on this, Marcus said. Whatever we find, whatever the truth is, I need to know you're with me. Cade's hand found his shoulder, the warrior's grip that said everything. Always, Your Majesty, brothers who bleed together. Stand together, Marcus finished. The old promise, the bond forged in 15 years of service, the loyalty that transcended rank and protocol. They moved out at 2000 hours that night. Silent march through darkness, 3 teams converging on Millbrook from different angles, maintaining silence, every guard knowing their role without need for repeated orders. By midnight, they had the village surrounded. Marcus positioned himself on the northern overlook with Cade and 2 scouts, enhanced royal senses giving him clear view of every building, every street, every potential exit. And there, in a modest cottage on the village's northern edge, lamplight burned against darkness. Your Majesty, Sir Owen's voice came softly over the communication crystal. I have eyes on target building. Adult female visible through window, matches description. Child appears to be sleeping in adjacent room. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. Confirm identity. A pause. Then Owen's voice, careful and certain. Your Majesty, it's her. It's definitely Queen Seraphine. The world held its breath. Marcus stared at that distant cottage, at the lamplight that meant his queen was real and alive and close enough to reach. After 5 years of absence, after 3 days of desperate searching, after an eternity of grief, she was there. Orders, Your Majesty? Cade asked quietly. We wait for dawn, Marcus said, though every instinct screamed to move now, to close the distance, to end this nightmare of separation. No one moves without my command. She's been running for 5 years. I won't corner her in darkness. When the sun rises, we do this right. The longest night of his life began. Marcus watched that cottage while stars wheeled overhead, watched lamplight eventually dim as Seraphine went to bed, watched darkness settle over a village that held everything he'd lost. Beside him, Cade maintained silent vigil, the brotherhood of warriors who kept watch together, who protected each other through darkness until dawn came. Do you think she'll run again? Cade asked at some point near midnight. Probably, Marcus said. She's been preparing for this, practicing evasion, building contingencies. And when she does? I'll be faster, Marcus said simply. This time I'll be faster. Dawn arrived with agonizing slowness. The eastern sky brightening from black to gray to pale gold, the village below stirring to life, smoke from breakfast fires, early risers emerging to tend livestock, normal morning routines that had no idea they were about to be disrupted. Marcus watched the cottage door, waited, every muscle coiled tight. When Seraphine finally emerged, she had Emma with her. The child clung to her mother's skirts, still sleepy. Seraphine carried a water jug, moving toward the village well with the kind of casual purpose that suggested routine. Morning water collection. Ordinary task. Marcus stood. The movement drew her attention like magnetic pull. Even across 100 yards, even without full access to her royal abilities, she felt him. Their eyes met. Seraphine went absolutely still. The water jug slipped from nerveless fingers, shattering on cobblestones. She grabbed Emma's hand in the same motion, already turning to run. Now, Marcus said. His teams closed in from every direction. Not threatening, not aggressive, but making it absolutely clear that evasion wasn't possible this time. The perimeter was complete. The exits were blocked. The search was over. Marcus walked down from his overlook position, Cade at his shoulder, moving at a steady, deliberate pace that ate up distance without appearing rushed, giving Seraphine time to understand, time to see that running wouldn't work, time to make the choice he needed her to make. She did try to run anyway. Old habits. Training taking over. She pulled Emma toward the forest edge with that same practiced evasion Marcus had seen 3 days ago at the fair. He was there before she'd covered 10 yards, royal bloodline speed closing the distance in heartbeats. His hands found her shoulders, gripped gentle but utterly unyielding. "Enough," he said quietly. "We need to talk." Seraphine turned in his grasp. Her eyes blazed with defiance and desperation, and something darker. Up close, she was exactly as he remembered. Beautiful, fierce, his queen in every way that mattered. But there were new lines around her eyes, new shadows in her expression. Whatever 5 years had done to him, it had marked her too. "Let us go, Marcus, please." The sound of his name on her lips hit like a physical blow. After 5 years of silence, after an eternity of loss. Hearing her voice wrap around his name like she had any right to ask for mercy after everything. "Not until you explain where you've been," he replied, his voice steady despite the chaos in his chest. "Not until you tell me why you're running from your own mate." She glanced down at Emma, who watched their exchange with wide, frightened eyes. The child didn't understand what was happening. Didn't know that the man holding her mother was the father she'd never met. Didn't know that her existence had shattered and rebuilt reality in 3 days of desperate searching. "This isn't the place," Seraphine said. "Then where?" Marcus pressed. "Your cottage? My palace? Name any location you prefer. But this conversation happens now." Her shoulders sagged in defeat, the fight draining out of her like water from cupped hands. She'd been ready to run, prepared for it. But she hadn't prepared for him surrounding the entire village with royal forces, hadn't prepared for the full weight of kingdom resources deployed with single-minded focus. "The old mill," she said finally, "by the stream. Give me 1 hour to make arrangements for—" "Our daughter comes with us," Marcus stated firmly, releasing Seraphine but stepping back only enough to prevent flight, not to grant freedom. He looked down at Emma, really seeing her now. The shape of her nose mirrored his own. Her stubborn chin came from her mother, but the eyes, those gray-green eyes, were pure Seraphine. "She deserves to know her father." "She doesn't know about—" Seraphine began. "Then it's time she learned," Marcus interrupted. 1 hour, Seraphine. Don't make me search for you again." He released her fully, stepped back. His guards had emerged from concealment now, forming a loose perimeter that communicated the futility of flight without appearing threatening. Royal forces in formal positions, making it clear that this time evasion wasn't an option. Seraphine looked at the perimeter, at Cade standing ready at Marcus's right, at the complete strategic superiority of his position. Her expression was complex, defeat, yes, but also something that might have been relief. Maybe running was exhausting. Maybe hiding was its own kind of prison. Maybe some part of her had always known this moment would come. 1 hour, she agreed, the old mill, just you, no one else. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted guards present for security, wanted witnesses for whatever truth was about to emerge. But Seraphine's eyes held something that made him hesitate. Fear, yes, but not of him, of something else. Something that made her need privacy for whatever she was about to reveal. "Just me," he agreed, "but Emma comes too, non-negotiable." Seraphine looked down at their daughter, at the child who existed as impossible proof that death could be survived, that bonds could endure even when everyone said they were severed. "Okay," she whispered, "we'll be there." She turned and walked back toward her cottage, Emma's small hand in hers, not running this time, just walking, defeated or resigned or perhaps finally ready to stop hiding. Marcus watched her go, every instinct screaming to follow, to not let her out of his sight again, to maintain contact until he had answers that made sense of 5 years. But he held his ground, gave her the hour she'd requested, because whatever was about to happen, whatever truth was about to emerge, it required trust he wasn't sure he still had. Cade moved to stand beside him, silent support, the brotherhood that asked no questions and offered absolute loyalty. "Are you ready for this?" Cade asked quietly. Marcus didn't answer, because he didn't know if any amount of readiness could prepare him for the truth of where Seraphine had been, why she'd hidden, what had made his queen choose 5 years of separation over coming home. But ready or not, in 1 hour he would find out. The old mill waited beside a stream that had turned its wheel for generations before abandonment left it silent. Marcus arrived first, unable to wait the full hour, unable to spend another minute not knowing. He stood in the mill's shadowed interior, studying timber beams that had witnessed countless lives and deaths, wondering what truth they would witness today. When Seraphine arrived, she had Emma's hand clutched tight in hers. The child's eyes were wide with uncertainty, but not fear. She looked at Marcus with open curiosity, the way children did before life taught them to be wary. "Mama, who is he?" Emma asked. The question hung in dusty air, simple, direct, devastating in its innocence. Seraphine knelt beside their daughter. Her hands were shaking, Marcus saw, her breathing unsteady. Whatever she was about to say cost her something essential. "Emma," she said gently, this is your father." The words landed like thunder. Emma's eyes went even wider. She looked at Marcus with new recognition, studying his face, comparing features to her own, finding the similarities that genetics made inevitable. "Papa?" she whispered. Marcus felt his heart crack open for the first time in 5 years. He dropped to one knee, bringing himself to her level. Let her see him without the advantage of height, without the armor of crown and authority. "Yes," he said, his voice rough with everything he couldn't express. "I'm your papa." Emma's face split into a smile that hurt worse than any wound. Pure joy, innocent acceptance. She launched herself at him, small arms wrapping around his neck in a hug that felt like resurrection. Marcus held his daughter for the first time, felt her warmth, her realness, the proof that love could create life even when darkness tried to destroy it. His hands shook as they steadied her small back. His eyes burned with tears he hadn't let fall in 5 years. "I knew you'd come," Emma whispered against his shoulder. "I dreamed it. I saw you looking for us." Over her head, Marcus met Seraphine's eyes, found them wet with tears too, complicated tears that mixed grief and relief and fear in equal measure. Whatever else was about to happen, whatever truth was about to shatter his world again, they'd given him this. One perfect moment of holding his daughter, of feeling her heartbeat against his chest, of knowing that some part of what he'd lost had been recovered. But Emma pulled back, settling on the floor with her wooden dolls, content to play while adults talked, giving them space for conversation that was 5 years overdue. Seraphine stood across from Marcus in the mill's shadows, his queen, his bonded mate, the woman who'd been dead and was somehow, impossibly, alive. "Talk to me," Marcus said quietly. "Please, help me understand." And Seraphine began to speak, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands, the truth emerging after 5 years of hiding, after 5 years of grief and absence and bonds that burned when they should have faded, the truth that would change everything, again. Seraphine's words came slowly at first, like poison being drawn from a wound that had festered for 5 years. Marcus listened in the old mill's shadows while Emma played with her dolls, innocent and unaware that her mother was describing an assassination attempt that should have succeeded. "The fire wasn't an accident," Seraphine said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Someone carved ancient runes into our bedchamber floor, forbidden symbols designed to twist the royal bond into chains. When the flames reached those runes, I couldn't move. Couldn't access my bloodline abilities, couldn't escape. The bond that should have protected me became my prison." Marcus felt ice spread through his chest. "That's impossible. Blood magic has been forbidden for 200 years. Who would even know how to—" "Someone who studied the old ways," Seraphine interrupted. "Someone who understood exactly how royal bonds work, how they can be weaponized by those who know their nature." The implications crashed over Marcus like waves. This wasn't random tragedy. This was calculated murder using magic that required intimate knowledge of their bond structure. Planning, preparation, access to the royal chambers. "I was trapped in that room," Seraphine continued, her eyes distant with memory. "The flames climbing the silk curtains, smoke filling my lungs. I tried to call my bloodline strength, tried to break free, but the runes held me frozen. The bond wouldn't let me leave you even to save myself. It was designed that way, to make me burn slowly while feeling every moment." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "How did you escape?" "Elder Thalia found me, the village healer. She knew enough about old magic to recognize what the runes were doing. She weakened them just enough for me to break free and crawl toward the window. By then," Seraphine gestured helplessly at herself, "the damage was done. My royal abilities were severed by magical backlash. I was pregnant and powerless. The palace wing came down minutes after I got out." "Why didn't you come to me?" The question emerged as barely more than a whisper. "Seraphine, I searched for you. I thought you were dead. 5 years of grief and you were alive somewhere. With what proof? Her laugh was bitter as winter wind. Your trusted advisor was first to respond that night. He organized the search, handled all evidence, told everyone my body was found in the rubble. To this day, Marcus, ask yourself, who identified my remains? Who convinced you I was dead? The name formed on his lips before his mind fully processed. Victor. Grand Chancellor Victor Ashwood, Seraphine confirmed. Your mentor, your father's most trusted counselor, the man who's been guiding kingdom policy for 30 years. He wanted me gone, not out of jealousy or passion, out of ideology. Marcus shook his head, rejecting what he was hearing. No, Victor would never. He served this realm his entire adult life. He's been helping me rule since the fire, encouraging me to recover, to move forward, to take a new queen and forget me, Seraphine said flatly, to become the king he always wanted you to be, strong, uncompromised by emotion, focused on duty above all else. Marcus, you were never the ruler Victor wanted. You were too young when your father died, too idealistic, too willing to let love inform your decisions. He tolerated our bond because he had no choice, but when the opportunity came to remove me and reshape you, you're saying he murdered you to make me a better king? The words tasted like poison. I'm saying he believes strong rulers don't let personal attachments compromise realm security. That grief makes you weak, that a royal bond is beautiful in theory but dangerous in practice. And I'm saying he's been waiting 5 years for you to heal and move on. When you didn't, when you kept mourning, he started questioning whether you were fit to rule at all. Marcus thought back over 5 years of conversations, Victor's gentle pressure to consider remarriage, his subtle suggestions that prolonged grief indicated instability, his increasing concern about Marcus's decision-making abilities, the way he'd been positioning himself as the voice of reason while Marcus spiraled deeper into loss. Every word of advice now carried new weight, new meaning. He's been preparing to replace me, Marcus said slowly, understanding, crystallizing. That's what this is about. Not just removing you, removing me. When you didn't break the way he expected, Seraphine confirmed, he realized his plan had only half succeeded. You were grieving but still functional, still ruling, still holding the kingdom together despite your pain. That wasn't the outcome he wanted. Emma's voice cut through the tension, clear and certain in the way children's voices could be when touching something beyond normal perception. The bad man is coming soon, she said without looking up from her dolls. I dreamed it last night. He hurts Papa, but Papa doesn't die. Both adults froze. Seraphine's face went pale. Marcus stared at his daughter, recognition dawning. The gray-green eyes, the certainty in her voice, the same prophetic gift that had run in Seraphine's bloodline for generations. She's been having true dreams since she was 4, Seraphine said quietly. Mostly small things. Where to find lost items, which roads to avoid. But lately, she looked at Marcus with fear in her eyes. Lately she's been dreaming about you, about violence, about choices that change everything. Then we move now, Marcus decided. Royal training taking over, emotional chaos giving way to strategic clarity. If Victor knows you've been found, if he realizes I know the truth, he'll accelerate whatever plan he has. You can't confront him directly, Seraphine warned. You have no proof beyond my word, and my word against 30 years of his loyal service? The court will think grief has driven you mad. Marcus looked at his queen, his bonded mate, the woman who'd survived assassination and 5 years of hiding, who'd kept their daughters safe while living with constant fear, who'd built contingency plans and escape routes because she knew the man who tried to kill her once would try again. She was right. Confrontation without evidence would destroy his credibility, would give Victor exactly the excuse he needed to question Marcus's fitness for the throne. This required strategy, planning, the kind of political chess game where one wrong move meant death. Then we gather proof, Marcus said. Elder Thalia examined the runes. She can testify to their nature. The old bedchamber ruins still exist. We preserved them during palace renovations. If fragments of those runes remain— They do, Seraphine said. Blood magic leaves permanent marks. The spell's signature will be embedded in the stone itself, but you'd need a master of old magic to read it, to prove who cast the spell. Thalia can do that? She's the only one I know with that knowledge. Marcus pulled Seraphine close, suddenly desperate to feel her reality, her warmth, the proof that she existed beyond his desperate hope. She came into his arms like coming home after long exile. Their bond blazed between them, no longer burning with pain, but with recognition, with completion. "I've been walking through darkness for 5 years," Marcus whispered against her hair, "trying to rule while half my soul was missing. I thought I was broken. That grief had compromised me beyond recovery. But you were out there. You were alive, and I never stopped feeling you." "I'm sorry," Seraphine breathed. "I'm so sorry. I wanted to come back every day, but Victor was watching, waiting, and I couldn't risk Emma, couldn't risk you. If he knew I survived, he'd finish what he started." "He won't get the chance," Marcus promised. "But we do this smart. We do this right. I won't lose you again." Emma approached them, small hands reaching for both parents, creating a trinity of connection. 3 heartbeats where there should have been 2. Proof that love survived when everyone said it was dead. "We need to go back," Emma said simply. "To the big palace. That's where the bad man is. That's where you fix everything." Out of the mouths of children came prophecy. Marcus looked at Seraphine over their daughter's head. "Can you do this?" he asked. "Can you walk back into the place where you nearly died, face the man who tried to murder you?" Seraphine's jaw set with determination that reminded him why he'd chosen her as mate, why she'd been queen before tragedy struck. She was steel-wrapped in grace, a strategist who fought with intellect instead of force. "Together," she said, "we face it together." The return to the royal palace happened in stages. First, Marcus alone, maintaining the appearance of routine. He'd found nothing in his search. The mysterious woman had been a grief-induced hallucination. Time to accept reality and move forward. The lie tasted like ash, but Cade was the only one who knew the truth. Marcus found his Lord Commander in the training courtyard, drilling junior guards in close-quarters combat. Cade called a break when Marcus approached, reading something in his king's expression that demanded privacy. They walked the palace battlements, far from listening ears, close enough to the edge that conversation would be lost in wind. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said, "and you're not going to believe it." "Try me, Your Majesty," Cade replied. After 15 years, there was nothing Marcus could say that would break their bond. "Seraphine is alive. I spoke with her. She's been in hiding with our daughter, and Victor tried to kill her 5 years ago using blood magic." Cade stopped walking, turned to face Marcus with an expression caught between hope and horror. "Your Majesty, that's impossible? Insane? Evidence that I've finally broken?" Marcus's laugh was hollow. "I know how it sounds, but I held her, Cade. Spoke to her, met my daughter, Emma. She's 6 years old and has prophetic dreams. And Seraphine told me things about that night, things that only someone who was there would know." "Victor?" Cade's voice was carefully neutral. "You're accusing the Grand Chancellor of murdering the Queen?" "I'm saying he carved blood magic runes in our bedchamber, trapped her with corrupted bond magic, told everyone she died when she actually escaped, and he's been positioning himself to take control of the throne ever since." Cade was quiet for long minutes, processing, calculating, measuring Marcus's words against decades of knowing Victor as mentor and friend, against the impossible claim that their most trusted advisor was a murderer. "What proof do you have?" Cade asked finally. "Seraphine's testimony, Elder Thalia's knowledge of the runes, the excavated ruins of our old chambers, and my instinct that says Victor has been manipulating me for 5 years." "That's not enough," Cade said bluntly. "Not to accuse a man of Victor's standing. The Royal Council would never accept it. Half of them served under him before they served under you." "I know." Marcus gripped the stone battlement, stone biting into his palms. "That's why we need to be smart about this. Gather undeniable evidence. Force him to reveal himself." "How?" Marcus outlined the plan, the performance he would give, the trap he would set, the way they'd use Victor's own ideology against him. When he finished, Cade was quiet again. "This could go very wrong," Cade said. "I know. If you're mistaken, if Seraphine is lying or confused or—" "She's not," Marcus cut him off. "I know my queen, and I know when I'm being told truth." Cade met his eyes. Brotherhood testing itself against impossible claims, loyalty measuring itself against pragmatism. Then, slowly, his hand found Marcus's shoulder. "What do you need?" Cade asked. Relief flooded through Marcus. "I need you to trust me. Even when this looks insane, even when I seem to be falling apart, I need you to hold the line." "Brothers who bleed together," Cade said. "Stand together," Marcus finished. The performance began at the next council session. Marcus entered the chamber with the defeated bearing of a man who'd finally accepted reality. He took his seat at the head of the table and waited for the room to quiet. "I've decided to stop the search," he announced. "The woman I saw at the festival was not Seraphine, just someone who resembled her. Grief made me see what I desperately wanted to see. It's time to accept that my queen is gone. Time to move forward." Around the table, relief was visible. Council members who'd been worried about their king's mental state now saw him taking the first step toward recovery, toward the stability everyone had been urging for 5 years. Victor's expression was carefully neutral, but Marcus caught the flicker of satisfaction. The subtle relaxation that suggested a problem was resolving itself. "A wise decision, Your Majesty," Victor said. "Painful, but necessary. The realm needs your full attention, especially with border tensions escalating." "Agreed," Marcus said. "Which is why I'm also considering Lady Catherine of Ironwood Kingdom. Her father has been proposing a marriage alliance for months. Strong bloodline, strategic advantages. Time to seriously evaluate the offer." Victor leaned forward, interest sharpening. "Lady Catherine would be an excellent choice. I could reach out to King Ironwood, arrange a formal meeting." "Do it," Marcus said. 2 weeks. I want a betrothal ceremony, public, with all neighboring kingdoms invited to witness. Show everyone that our realm is stable and looking toward the future." 2 weeks is quite sudden, Victor observed. "Are you certain?" "I'm certain that I've been weak too long," Marcus interrupted. "You were right, Victor, about everything. Grief has compromised my judgment, made me see threats where none exist, made me cling to a past that's dead. Time to be the king this realm needs, strong, focused, uncompromised by emotion." He was playing Victor's words back to him, giving the chancellor exactly what he'd been pushing for, watching the man's face light up with victory, with the satisfaction of finally reshaping his king into the ideal ruler. "I'm proud of you, Your Majesty," Victor said, and Marcus heard genuine warmth beneath the words. The mentor pleased with his student's growth. "This is the decision your father would have wanted, the decision that ensures realm survival." The meeting continued with logistics, border patrol schedules, resource allocation, preparations for the betrothal ceremony. Marcus played his part perfectly, the grieving king finally accepting reality and embracing duty. Only Cade knew the truth. Only Cade saw the performance for what it was. When the meeting ended and the chamber emptied, Victor lingered. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I know this isn't easy. Letting go never is. But you're doing the right thing. For yourself, for the kingdom, for everyone." Marcus met his eyes, saw genuine belief there. Victor truly thought he was helping, truly believed that removing Seraphine had been necessary, that reshaping Marcus into a ruler unburdened by emotional attachment was service, not betrayal. It made the truth worse somehow, that Victor wasn't a monster, just a counselor so committed to his vision of strong kingship that he'd justified murder as political necessity. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for standing by me these 5 years, for not giving up on me." "Never, Your Majesty," Victor replied. "You're like a son to me. Everything I do is to ensure your success." The words hung between them, truth and lies woven so tightly neither could be separated from the other. The chess game had begun. 3 days into the 2-week countdown, Marcus led a border patrol to investigate reported Blackwater incursions on the northwestern provinces. Standard procedure: 5 riders including Cade and Sir Owen Blackwell. Routine sweep that should have been unremarkable. The ambush came at the old trade road where Forest narrowed into a natural choke point. 6 attackers struck from concealment. Not Blackwater forces. Marcus knew that immediately. These were trained fighters. Military precision. Coordinated tactics that spoke of careful planning. "Defensive formation!" Marcus shouted, his royal bloodline abilities surging forward. Steel flashed in afternoon light. Enhanced combat reflexes engaged, the air filled with the clash of blades and the copper taste of blood. Marcus took down the first attacker with brutal efficiency, his combat training making the fight almost automatic. Cade fought at his right, protecting his flank the way they'd done for 15 years. But there were too many, too well coordinated. This wasn't random attack. This was assassination. Marcus saw it happen in slow motion, saw the blade aimed for his exposed back, saw Sir Owen throw himself into the path, saw steel punch through loyal flesh instead of royal heart. Owen went down hard, blood spreading across his uniform, eyes going wide with shock and pain. "No!" Marcus dropped beside him, hands trying to staunch bleeding that wouldn't stop. "Owen, stay with me. That's an order." "Your Majesty!" Owen gasped, his voice wet with blood in his lungs. "Weren't bandits. Too organized." "I know. Save your strength." "Tell my wife." Owen's hand found Marcus's arm, grip weakening. "Tell her I served well." "You can tell her yourself," Marcus insisted. But he knew the way Cade knew when standing over dying brothers. The light in Owen's eyes was already dimming. "Proud to serve your majesty," Owen whispered. "Good king, better man." Then he was gone, eyes going empty, hand falling away. A good soldier dead because someone had ordered his assassination. Marcus threw his head back and roared. Grief and rage combined into sound that carried across the valley. His remaining patrol members rallied around him. The attackers melted back into forest. Mission failed, but damage done. Cade knelt beside Owen's body, touched his fallen brother's shoulder in final salute. When he looked up at Marcus, his eyes held terrible understanding. "This was meant for you," Cade said. "I know. Victor? Who else benefits from my death?" They carried Owen's body back to the palace, wrapped in his own cloak, honored in death the way warriors should be. Marcus rode in front, carrying the weight of command that included watching men die for you. Owen's widow met them at the gates, saw the wrapped body, understood before anyone spoke. Her scream split the air, raw grief that Marcus felt in his bones. "You should have protected him," she sobbed, beating against Marcus's chest with fists that couldn't hurt, but wounded anyway. "He trusted you, he followed you, and you let him die." "I'm sorry," Marcus said. Inadequate, meaningless. The words rulers offered when they'd failed. "He saved my life. He died a hero." "Heroes don't feed widows," she shouted. "Heroes don't raise fatherless children. You're alive and he's dead, and you dare call that heroic?" Marcus had no answer. She was right. Owen had died because someone wanted Marcus dead, because the chess game he was playing had real casualties, because politics always cost more than rulers wanted to pay. The funeral happened 2 days later, full royal honors, Marcus delivering the eulogy that praised Owen's courage, his loyalty, his sacrifice, words that rang hollow against the reality of 3 children who would grow up without their father. Victor stood at the ceremony's edge, expression appropriately somber, playing the concerned advisor. But Marcus caught something else. Calculation. Victor was measuring Marcus's response, seeing if grief would break him, if losing Owen would compromise his judgment the way losing Seraphine was supposed to have. After the funeral, Cade found Marcus at the gravesite. "Owen's patrol never reported seeing Blackwater forces in that sector," Cade said quietly. "The intelligence that sent us there was fabricated. Someone wanted you at that specific location. Victor has access to all reports. He could have easily planted the threat. He tried to kill you, Your Majesty. This isn't theoretical anymore. This is active assassination." "I know." Marcus looked at Owen's fresh grave, at the stone that would mark where a good man fell. "Which means we're running out of time. He's moving faster than expected. We need to force his hand before he tries again." "How?" Marcus had been thinking about it, about the one move Victor wouldn't anticipate, the one thing that would shift the entire game. "We bring Seraphine back," he said, "publicly, before the betrothal ceremony. While all those witnesses are gathering, we make her return impossible to deny or explain away. That puts her directly in danger." "We're all in danger anyway," Marcus said. "But if she reveals herself with court witnesses present, if she tells her story before the assembled kings, Victor can't silence her. He'd have to act against her openly, and that's when we get him." It was risk, enormous risk, using his queen as bait, gambling that Victor's need to maintain appearances would override his instinct to kill. But it was also the only move that changed the game. The next morning, Marcus met Seraphine and Emma in the forest. Elder Thalia had hidden them in her cottage, deep in royal lands where Victor's spies couldn't easily reach. It was strange, sneaking through his own kingdom to meet his queen, but necessary. Seraphine listened to Marcus's plan. Her expression showed the same tactical assessment that had made her an effective queen before the fire. She was evaluating risks, calculating angles, seeing 3 moves ahead the way good strategists did. "You're asking me to walk back into the palace where I nearly died," she said, "to face the man who tried to murder me, with only your promise of protection standing between me and a second attempt." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "I won't lie to you about the danger. Victor is desperate. He'll see your return as existential threat. But if we do this right, if we control the timing and the witnesses, we can force him into a position where he has no good options." "Except killing us all," Seraphine pointed out. Accept that. Emma spoke up from where she'd been playing near the cottage. Papa needs to do this. I dreamed it. Mama comes home and everything changes. Seraphine looked at their daughter, at the child who saw futures unwritten and spoke them with absolute certainty. Then back at Marcus. I've been hiding for 5 years, Seraphine said slowly, living in fear, running every time someone looked at me twice, building contingencies and escape routes, and teaching Emma how to survive without me in case Victor found us. I'm tired, Marcus, tired of being afraid, tired of living half a life. Then come home, Marcus said. Let me protect you the way I should have 5 years ago. Let me be the mate you deserved. You were always the mate I deserved, Seraphine said softly. But Victor was right about one thing. Love does make us vulnerable, gives our enemies weapons to use against us. The question is whether that vulnerability is weakness or strength. What do you think? Seraphine's hand found his. I think love is what we fight for, which makes it worth any cost. Then we do this together. Together, Seraphine agreed. 3 days later, Seraphine walked through the royal palace gates with Emma's hand in hers. She wore no hood, made no attempt to hide, just walked steadily toward the great hall where court members were gathering for the evening meal. The reaction was instantaneous. Shocked gasps, courtiers dropping what they held. Someone screamed. Within minutes, word was spreading through the palace like wildfire. The Queen lives. Lady Seraphine has returned. The dead walk among us. Marcus stood in the great hall as Seraphine entered. Their eyes met across the crowded space. He moved toward her with deliberate calm, giving everyone time to witness, to understand. This was real. This was happening. He reached her and pulled her close. Let the bond between them be visible to every enhanced sense in the room. There was no mistaking a royal bond, no faking that particular signature of connection. Welcome home, Marcus said clearly, for everyone to hear. The hall erupted in celebration. Nobles who had mourned their queen for 5 years, now seeing her restored. The impossible made manifest. Joy and confusion mixing together as court members tried to understand how their dead queen was suddenly alive. Victor entered the hall last. Marcus watched him carefully, saw the chancellor's face go absolutely white, saw shock war with calculation war, with something that might have been rage. For one unguarded moment, Victor's mask slipped. He knew. He understood immediately what Seraphine's return meant. All his careful planning, all his patient reshaping of Marcus's grief, all his positioning for eventual control, destroyed in one moment. But then the mask was back. Victor moved forward with appropriate concern. Queen Seraphine, he said, his voice warm with relief that fooled everyone except those who knew to look for deception. This is miraculous. We thought, where have you been? What happened that night? I was held captive, Seraphine said, her prepared story smooth and vague. Drugged for years, recently freed. The details are unclear. Trauma, the healers say. But I'm home now. Of course, Victor said. We must investigate immediately. Find who did this. Make them pay. His eyes held Seraphine's. Threat implicit. Warning clear. She'd returned, yes, but she was still vulnerable. Still in his reach. Marcus stepped between them, protective, deliberate. After the betrothal ceremony, right now we celebrate. Lady Catherine's delegation arrives in 2 days. We'll have time for investigations after. Of course, Your Majesty, Victor agreed, too easily. After the ceremony, he left the hall, moving with purpose, already adjusting his plans, already calculating new moves. Marcus and Seraphine exchanged looks. The game had shifted. Victor was cornered, which made him more dangerous than ever. Emma pulled on Marcus's sleeve. Papa, the bad man is going away to think. He's making new plans, plans that hurt. I know, little one, Marcus said, picking up his daughter, but so are we. The next 72 hours were the most dangerous of Marcus's reign. More than border wars, more than political intrigue, because this was a different kind of battle, fought in corridors and private meetings, in subtle power plays and careful positioning. Victor moved through the palace like a man preparing for siege, quietly ensuring his loyalists were in key positions, making certain his most trusted advisors understood that challenging times were coming, positioning pieces for a move Marcus could sense but not yet see. Cade reported each development. He's consolidating power, reminding people of his long service, questioning your judgment in subtle ways, suggesting that Queen Seraphine's story doesn't make sense. What's he telling them? That 5 years is the long time, that trauma can confuse memories, that perhaps the Queen believes what she's saying, but the truth might be more complicated. He's planting seeds of doubt. Marcus had expected this. Victor was too smart to confront directly. Instead, he'd undermine, make people question, create enough uncertainty that when he finally made his move, the court would be prepared to accept it. Lady Catherine's delegation arrived on schedule, a smaller group than expected. Just the lady herself and her father, King Ironwood, along with a handful of advisors. They were received with full honors. Guest quarters prepared, feast scheduled for the formal betrothal announcement. But Catherine pulled Marcus aside within hours of arrival. "I need to speak with you, Your Majesty," she said, "privately, about Grand Chancellor Ashwood." They met in Marcus's study. Catherine was a striking woman. Strong features, royal bearing, the kind of queen who would have made an excellent political mate under different circumstances. "The Chancellor contacted me 3 weeks ago," Catherine said without preamble. "Before your invitation, he suggested that a marriage alliance would be beneficial, that you needed guidance toward stability, that with the right influence, you could be shaped into an effective ruler." Marcus's jaw tightened. "He was recruiting you." "He was," Catherine confirmed, "and being quite candid about his concerns regarding your fitness to rule, your prolonged grief, your emotional instability, your questionable judgment. He painted a picture of a king compromised beyond recovery." "What did you tell him?" "That I'd consider his proposal," Catherine said. "And then I did consider it, quite carefully. I investigated your realm's condition, spoke with traders who do business here, consulted with neutral observers. Do you know what I found?" "Tell me." "A kingdom that's been remarkably stable for 5 years under difficult circumstances. A ruler whose decisions have been sound, even while personally grieving. A realm that's grown stronger, not weaker, despite having no queen." The Chancellor's assessment didn't match reality, which made me wonder what his actual agenda was. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. An ally, unexpected but desperately needed. "His agenda," Marcus said carefully, "is replacing me with a ruler more aligned to his vision of what a king should be. By using me as his tool," Catherine said. "I don't appreciate being manipulated, so when your actual invitation arrived, I decided to attend, to see for myself what was happening, and to offer my services as witness to whatever confrontation is coming." "What makes you think there's a confrontation coming?" Catherine smiled. "Because Queen Seraphine's return disrupts all of the Chancellor's careful planning, because your entire betrothal ceremony is suddenly theater, and because I've ruled long enough to recognize when pieces are moving toward checkmate." "Will you stand with me?" Marcus asked. "When Victor makes his play, will you witness what happens?" "I will," Catherine said. "For the price of honest alliance after this is done. Not marriage, but trade agreements, mutual defense, the kind of partnership between equals that benefits both kingdoms." "Done." They shook on it, ruler to ruler, royal to royal. One more piece positioned on the board. The confrontation came on the second night of Catherine's visit. A messenger arrived at Marcus's quarters near midnight, urgent summons from Grand Chancellor Ashwood, important security matter requiring immediate royal attention. Marcus knew it was a trap, knew Victor was making his move, but refusing the summons would show fear, would give Victor the narrative he wanted. So Marcus went, but he went prepared. Kate accompanied him, both armed, both expecting violence. The old council building was dark when they arrived, single lamp burning in the main chamber. Victor stood alone in the center, his bearing suggesting this was judgment rather than ambush. "Thank you for coming, Your Majesty," Victor said. "We need to discuss Queen Seraphine." "What about her?" "Her story doesn't add up. 5 years held captive but no details about her captors? No explanation of how she escaped? No signs consistent with prolonged imprisonment? I've been a counselor for 30 years. I know what captivity does to people. She doesn't show the signs." "What are you suggesting?" Victor's voice carried certainty. "Tomorrow, at the betrothal ceremony, I intend to raise these questions, formally, before all the assembled kingdoms." "You're calling for my abdication." "I'm calling for truth," Victor said. "Your judgment has been compromised. The realm deserves better. So you'll take the throne." "If I must, for the good of all." "You tried to kill me," Marcus said quietly. "Owen died in my place." "Blackwater forces," Victor said smoothly. "Unfortunate, but it proves my point. You carved blood magic runes in my bedchamber. You tried to murder my queen." "You have no proof," Victor said. "Tomorrow that will become clear." Marcus held his gaze. "Then present your case. Let the council decide. I will, Victor said. Marcus and Cade left. When they were far enough away, Cade spoke. He's going to move against Seraphine tonight. I know, Marcus said, which is exactly what we're counting on. Tonight. The palace settled into uneasy sleep as midnight approached. Marcus stood in his private chambers with Cade, Seraphine, and Lady Catherine. Elder Thalia had joined them, carrying the wooden box that held fragments of the blood magic runes. The pieces of their trap were in position. Now came the waiting. He'll move against Seraphine tonight, Marcus said, studying the tactical map spread across his desk. He can't risk tomorrow's ceremony with her alive to contradict his narrative. The question is how. Direct assault on her quarters would be too obvious, Cade assessed. Too many witnesses. He'll try to make it look like an accident or disappearance. Seraphine stood by the window, watching the darkened courtyard below. He'll send loyal soldiers, men who've served under him for years, who trust his judgment over yours. They'll believe they're protecting the realm from a dangerous infiltrator. How many men does he have? Catherine asked. She'd positioned herself as tactical advisor, bringing an outsider's perspective that cut through internal politics. Maybe 30 who'd follow orders without question, Cade calculated. Another 20 who might be persuaded. The rest of the court is loyal to Marcus, but Victor has been careful to place his people in key positions. Marcus traced guard rotation schedules. He'll wait until the third watch. 3 in the morning, minimal patrols, maximum opportunity. That's when he'd move if this were a military operation. Then we prepare for 3 a.m., Catherine said. What's the play? Marcus looked at each person in the room. His queen, his brother-in-arms, his unexpected ally, the elder who'd kept Seraphine alive when magic tried to kill her. These were the people he trusted with truth, with his life, with everything. We let him take her, Marcus said. Seraphine's head whipped around. What? We let his team capture you. Make him think he's succeeded. He'll bring you somewhere he considers secure, somewhere he can control the situation. And that's when we spring the real trap. You're using her as bait again, Cade said flatly. I'm using all of us as bait, Marcus corrected. Victor wants to paint me as unstable, compromised by emotion, unable to rule, so I'll give him exactly that. I'll react emotionally, chase after Seraphine without thinking, walk straight into whatever ambush he's prepared, play the broken king he expects me to be, while actually maintaining tactical control. Catherine finished, seeing the strategy. You're giving him false victory to make him overconfident. Exactly. Victor's greatest weakness is his certainty. He believes he's right, believes he's serving the greater good. That righteousness makes him predictable. He'll follow the playbook of someone rescuing a realm from a failed ruler. Which means he needs witnesses, Thalia said quietly. The elder had been listening in silence, but now she spoke with the weight of long experience. He won't just kill Queen Seraphine. He'll need to discredit her publicly, prove she's not who she claims, break the royal bond in front of the assembled kingdoms to show that King Marcus's judgment is fatally compromised. Marcus met her eyes. The rune circle. He kept the original caster alive, Thalia confirmed, or found another with knowledge of blood magic. He'll try to recreate what he did 5 years ago, but this time with witnesses. Rip your bond apart publicly. When you're broken, when you're writhing in agony before all the neighboring rulers, the realm will accept his control. They'll see it as mercy, as necessary succession. The words hung in the air like smoke. Victor's plan was elegant in its cruelty. Not just removing Marcus, but destroying him so completely that no one would question the transition of power. Then that's where we end this, Marcus said, in the rune circle, where it all began. Seraphine moved to stand before him. Her hands found his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. You're talking about walking voluntarily into the same trap that nearly killed me. Marcus, the pain. You can't imagine what it's like when the bond turns against you, when the thing that should protect you becomes torture. I know, he said softly, but it's the only way to force him into the open, to make him commit to action that can't be explained away or justified. We need him to activate the runes himself, to show everyone what he's willing to do. And if you die? Then I die proving the truth. Emma grows up knowing her father chose honor over survival. The realm gets a ruler who won't murder to maintain power. It's not victory, but it's not total loss either. That's not acceptable, Seraphine said fiercely. I didn't survive 5 years of hiding to lose you in some noble sacrifice. We do this together or not at all. Marcus pulled her close, feeling the bond blaze between them. 5 years of separation, 3 days of reunion. Not nearly enough time. But maybe time wasn't what mattered. Maybe what mattered was the choice to stand together, even when darkness seemed inevitable. "Together," he agreed. "We face it together." Emma's small voice cut through the adult conversation. She'd been sitting quietly in the corner, playing with wooden dolls, but now she looked up with eyes that saw beyond normal sight. "The bad man is coming soon," she said. "With soldiers. They take Mama, but Mama goes on purpose. Papa follows. Everything happens at the stone circle where fire lives, and then—" She paused, her face scrunching in concentration. "And then light. So much light. It hurts to see, but it's good hurt, the kind that fixes broken things." The adults exchanged looks, prophecy spoken in a child's simple words, the future laid out like a map if they had courage to follow it. "Positions," Marcus said, shifting into command mode. "Cade, you're with me. When they take Seraphine, we follow at distance. Track them to wherever Victor has prepared his stage. Catherine, you stay here. Tomorrow morning, you gather the other rulers. Bring them to wherever we end up. They need to witness what happens." "How will I know where to go?" Catherine asked. "Trust me," Marcus said. "You'll know." The third watch arrived with agonizing slowness. Marcus waited in his chambers, every sense alert. Seraphine had returned to her assigned quarters, playing her role, appearing to sleep while actually ready for what was coming. Cade stood watch from the shadows of an alcove 3 doors down, close enough to respond, far enough to avoid detection. They'd positioned loyal guards at key points throughout the palace, not enough to stop Victor's team, but enough to track their movements. At 3:15, Marcus felt it, the shift in the palace's energy, movement where there shouldn't be, footsteps too careful to be routine patrol. His communication crystal pulsed softly. Cade's voice barely above whisper. 6 contacts approaching Queen Seraphine's quarters, armed, moving with purpose. "Let them proceed," Marcus replied. "Track, but don't engage." Minutes passed like hours. Then he heard it. Seraphine's voice raised in alarm. Not quite a scream, just loud enough to sound like genuine surprise without waking the entire palace. The sound of a struggle, furniture overturning, then silence. Cade's voice returned. "They have her, moving toward the old council complex, same location as last night's meeting." "Victor's chosen his ground," Marcus said. "He wants this contained, controllable, somewhere he can manage the narrative." "Do we move?" "Give them 10 minutes. Let them think they've succeeded cleanly. Then we follow." The waiting was agony. Every instinct screamed to charge after his queen, to rescue her immediately, to not let her spend even seconds in enemy hands. But strategy required patience, required letting Victor believe he'd won. At 3:30, Marcus and Cade slipped from the palace, moving through shadows like ghosts, following a path they'd already mapped. The old council complex sat at the palace's eastern edge, half-ruined stone buildings that had once housed 3 times the advisors currently serving. Now it was mostly abandoned, perfect for activities that required privacy, perfect for blood magic and forced abdication. They positioned themselves on a roof overlooking the main courtyard, enhanced royal senses giving them clear view of what Victor had prepared, and what they saw made Marcus's blood run cold. The courtyard had been converted into a ceremonial space, torches burning at cardinal points, the blood magic rune circle reconstructed in the center using the original fragments Elder Thalia had examined. But this version was larger, more elaborate, designed not just to trap, but to create spectacle. Seraphine stood in the circle's center, held between 2 of Victor's soldiers. Emma sat nearby, hands bound, tears streaming down her face, and there, supervising everything, stood Victor himself. He'd changed into formal chancellor robes. This wasn't an assassination. This was a trial. But the thing that made Marcus's hands clench into fists was seeing the rescue team. 5 guards they'd sent to position strategically around the palace. The team that was supposed to provide backup if Victor's soldiers tried to capture Seraphine. They knelt at the courtyard's edge, hands bound behind their backs. Captured, defeated, Victor's trap within a trap. Beside Marcus on the roof, Cade breathed a curse. He knew. He knew we'd have people ready, probably had watchers on them for days, waiting for the moment they'd reveal themselves. "He's better than I thought," Marcus admitted. "Good strategists are dangerous. Great ones are terrifying. Victor's proving he's the latter." "What now?" Marcus studied the scene below, counted soldiers, assessed positions, calculated odds that looked increasingly grim. Victor had perhaps 20 loyal guards in that courtyard, all armed, all positioned to respond to any threat. This wasn't somewhere Marcus could fight his way through, which meant fighting wasn't the answer. Strategy was. "I go down there," Marcus said, "alone, unarmed. I offer myself in exchange for Seraphine and Emma." "That's suicide." "That's checkmate," Marcus corrected. "Victor wants to break me publicly, wants me to play the desperate king who can't think straight, so I give him that. I walk into his trap voluntarily, make him commit completely. And then? Then we trust in bonds stronger than blood magic, in love that survived 5 years of separation, in a child who dreams true futures and speaks prophecy. We trust that some things can't be broken no matter how much darkness tries." Cade gripped Marcus's shoulder, the warrior's clasp that said everything words couldn't. "If this goes wrong, then you lead the realm. You make sure Emma knows her father loved her enough to die so she could live free. You tell Seraphine I kept my promise to face this together. And you make sure Victor never holds power, whatever it costs." "Brothers who bleed together," Cade said. "Stand together," Marcus finished, "even when we can't stand beside each other." He descended from the roof, walked across open ground toward the courtyard entrance, made no attempt at stealth. Let Victor's guards see him coming, see the king approaching alone and unarmed, see the man walking into certain doom because his heart wouldn't let him do anything else. Victor's soldiers moved to intercept, weapons raised, ready to cut him down before he reached the courtyard proper. But Victor's voice stopped them. "Let him approach." The soldiers parted. Marcus walked between them, kept his gaze locked on Victor's face, seeing the satisfaction there, the vindication, the certainty that his plan was succeeding exactly as designed. Marcus entered the courtyard, stopped at the rune circle's edge, close enough to see Seraphine clearly, close enough to see Emma's tears, close enough to see the magical trap waiting to spring. "Impressive," Marcus said, gesturing at the setup. "You've thought of everything. The circle, the witnesses, the timing, very thorough." "I've had 5 years to plan," Victor replied. 5 years of watching you spiral, waiting for you to recover so the realm could move forward. And when you didn't, when you kept clinging to ghosts and memories, I realized recovery wasn't possible, that the only way forward was through succession. So you recreate the assassination, but this time with audience. Victor's voice carried conviction that chilled Marcus more than any threat. This time with proof. When the assembled rulers arrive tomorrow morning, they'll find you broken. The council will have no choice but to remove you, and I will take command, not because I want power, but because someone must be strong enough to rule without sentiment clouding every decision. Marcus looked at Seraphine. Their eyes met across the circle. He saw fear there, yes, but also trust, also determination, also love that hadn't diminished despite 5 years and assassination attempts and everything darkness could throw at them. "What are your terms?" Marcus asked. "Terms?" Victor seemed surprised. "There are no terms. This ends one way, with you removed from power." "Then let them go. Seraphine and Emma. They're not part of this. Let them leave safely and I'll cooperate. I'll step into your circle. Let you do whatever you need to do. I won't fight, won't resist. Just let my family go free." Victor studied him, calculating, measuring sincerity against possibility of deception. Then slowly, he shook his head. "No, they stay. The child especially. Her existence proves you kept secrets from the realm, that you prioritized personal matters over collective good. She's evidence, Your Majesty, just like her mother. She's 6 years old." Victor's face hardened. "She's proof of judgment failure that disqualifies leadership. A secret daughter you hid from your own court? Tomorrow morning, when the rulers witness your breakdown, they'll understand why succession is necessary." Marcus felt rage building in his chest, cold and sharp and lethal, not the hot anger of emotion, the calculated fury of a warrior recognizing true evil masked as virtue. "You're not saving the realm," Marcus said quietly. "You're destroying it. Leadership without heart, without connection, without the very thing that makes us a kingdom instead of just subjects following orders. That's not strength, Victor. That's cowardice dressed in political justification." "Spoken like someone who doesn't understand rule," Victor replied. "Step into the circle, Your Majesty. Let me show the assembled realms tomorrow morning what happens when emotion overrides duty." Marcus looked at Seraphine again, saw her imperceptible nod, the signal they'd agreed on. She was ready. Whatever happened next, they'd face it together. He stepped into the rune circle. The moment his foot crossed the boundary, pain exploded through his nervous system. The royal bond, that connection he'd felt burning for 5 years, suddenly turned into instrument of torture. It was like being burned from the inside out, like every cell in his body was being ripped apart and reassembled wrong. Marcus dropped to his knees, couldn't help it. The agony was beyond anything he'd experienced in 15 years of combat, beyond any wound or injury or broken bone. This was fundamental wrongness, the thing that made him complete being used to destroy him. Through tear-blurred vision, he saw Victor gesture, saw Seraphine shoved forward, saw her stumble into the circle beside him. The moment she entered, her own scream joined his, the pain doubling as the circle recognized both halves of the bond it was designed to sever. They collapsed together. Marcus's hand found hers by instinct, their fingers intertwined as magic built around them, the runes beginning to glow with malevolent light, blood magic feeding on their suffering, growing stronger with each moment of agony. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Victor's voice came from outside the circle. Calm, academic, the tone of someone observing a successful experiment. The magic recognizes true bonds, uses that truth as fuel. The stronger your connection, the more it can corrupt. That's why blood magic was forbidden, not because it's weak, but because it's too effective when properly applied. Marcus tried to speak, couldn't form words, could only hold Seraphine's hand and feel her pain mixing with his own, their bond being twisted, corrupted, turned into chains exactly as she'd described from 5 years ago. "Tomorrow morning," Victor continued, his voice carrying absolute certainty, "the rulers will find you here, broken but alive, the bond severed. Seraphine revealed as something that survived when she shouldn't have, and you'll live just long enough to abdicate formally before your heart gives out. Clean succession, no questions about legitimacy." The pain built. Marcus felt his consciousness starting to fragment, felt the bond stretching beyond endurance, felt death approaching with gentle inevitability. But then he felt something else. Seraphine's grip tightened on his hand, not random, purposeful. And through the agony, he heard her voice, barely a whisper, but absolutely clear. "Together, we face it together, don't let go." He understood. Fighting the circle individually was impossible. The magic was designed to attack bonds by isolating the connected individuals, turning unity into separation, making together into alone. But if they stopped fighting individually, if they embraced the bond instead of trying to protect themselves from it, Marcus pulled Seraphine closer, wrapped his arms around her despite the searing pain the contact brought. Let their bond blaze at full strength instead of trying to shield against its corruption. Because Victor had made one critical error in his understanding. Love wasn't weakness, it was power. And when you tried to weaponize it, you risked discovering just how strong it could be. The runes flared brighter, pain reaching levels that should have killed them. But something was changing. The magic that was supposed to sever their bond was instead being absorbed by it, fed into connection that refused to break, that grew stronger under pressure instead of fragmenting. Victor's satisfaction turned to concern. "What? That's not supposed to happen. The circle should be breaking you apart." "Love doesn't break," Seraphine gasped. "It bends, adapts, survives. You never understood that. Never understood that bonds forged in genuine choice are stronger than any magic." "Impossible!" Victor snarled. He gestured to someone outside Marcus's blurred vision. "Activate the amplification sequence, maximum power. Break them. Break!" More pain flooded the circle, levels beyond human endurance, beyond royal bloodline resilience. Marcus felt his body starting to shut down, felt death not approaching, but arriving. This was too much. Even love couldn't survive this level of assault. And then Emma was there. The child had somehow freed herself from her bonds, somehow evaded Victor's soldiers, somehow reached the circle's edge despite being 6 years old and powerless in a courtyard full of warriors. "Mama, Papa," she cried, "stop hurting!" She stepped into the circle without hesitation, without fear, and the moment her small body joined theirs, everything changed. The runes exploded with silver light, not the malevolent red of blood magic, but pure white radiance that had no corruption in it. Emma's presence created Trinity, father, mother, child, the complete family unit that blood magic wasn't designed to handle, because blood magic worked by perverting bonds. But how do you pervert innocence? How do you corrupt a child's pure love for her parents? How do you weaponize something that has no darkness to twist? The magic couldn't. So instead of corrupting Emma's addition to the bond, the spell shattered against her, like water striking stone, like darkness meeting light, like every promise that love conquers all, finding proof in physics and magic. The backlash was instantaneous and catastrophic. The rune circle that Victor had so carefully reconstructed cracked, literally split apart as magical energy it couldn't contain rebounded through the channels he'd created. Blood magic turning on its caster the way it always eventually did. Victor screamed, staggered backward, his body aging visibly as the spell's price came due, hair turning white, face hollowing, decades of life draining away in seconds as the forbidden magic extracted its cost. "No," he gasped. "No, this was supposed to work. I planned everything, every detail. This was supposed to save the realm." He fell to his knees. The soldiers around him frozen in shock, no one quite understanding what they'd just witnessed. No one sure what they were supposed to do when their leader's plan exploded into this. In the circle's center, Marcus held both Seraphine and Emma. The three of them wrapped together. The bond between Marcus and Seraphine no longer corrupted, but purified, burning with silver light that had no pain in it, just recognition, connection, the completion that came from finding your other half and refusing to let magic or murder or 5 years of separation destroy it. "Together," Marcus whispered. "We survived together." Dawn arrived with the other rulers. Catherine had gathered them as promised, brought them to the old council courtyard where evidence of blood magic was unmistakable, the shattered rune circle, the lingering magical residue. Victor collapsed on the ground, aged beyond recognition. King Ironwood, King Blackwater, Queen Windmere, half a dozen others, all standing witness to what had happened, all seeing proof that blood magic had been used, that Victor Ashwood had attempted to corrupt royal bonds and force succession through forbidden means, and all seeing Marcus and Seraphine standing together, alive, their bond blazing with visible power that no deception could fake. Victor tried to speak, tried to explain, but his voice was gone, stolen by the magical backlash along with his youth and strength. He could only kneel in the courtyard dirt, broken by his own trap. "Blood magic is forbidden by treaty that predates any kingdom here," King Ironwood pronounced. His voice carried absolute authority. 300 years old, the most senior ruler present. The penalty is death, immediate and without appeal. But Marcus raised his hand. No. Everyone turned to look at him, waiting for judgment, for the vengeance that would be understandable after assassination attempts and corruption and everything Victor had done. "Death would be a mercy," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite everything they'd endured. Grand Chancellor Ashwood spent his life serving this realm, serving the idea of strong leadership. He believed what he was doing was right, was necessary, and he was wrong, but that doesn't erase 30 years of genuine service. He approached Victor, knelt beside the broken man who'd been his mentor, his advisor, his would-be murderer. "I exile you," Marcus said, "beyond the borders of all civilized territories. You'll live, carry the knowledge of what your ideology cost, how trying to remove love and emotion and connection in service of strength actually destroyed everything you tried to protect. That's punishment worse than death, living with the truth of your failure." Victor's eyes met his, aged and haunted and full of understanding that came too late. He tried to speak, managed only a whisper. "I was trying to save us." "I know," Marcus said, not without compassion. "That's what makes it tragedy instead of just crime. You believed, you genuinely believed, and you were genuinely wrong." Soldiers came forward, not Victor's loyalists now, just royal guards doing their duty. They helped the broken chancellor to his feet, led him away toward exile, toward living with consequences instead of dying without understanding. The other rulers watched him go, then turned their attention to Marcus. "You showed mercy," Catherine observed. "Unexpected." "I showed justice," Marcus corrected. "Mercy would be forgiveness. Justice is appropriate consequence. He lives, but not here, not in power, not where he can hurt anyone again." "And what about you?" King Blackwater asked. "After everything that's happened, the assassination attempts, the blood magic, the attempted coup, how do you intend to rule?" Marcus looked at Seraphine, at Emma, at Cade standing at the courtyard's edge, his expression a mixture of relief and pride. At Elder Thalia, who'd kept his queen alive when magic tried to kill her. At all the pieces that had come together to survive darkness. "The same way I always have," Marcus said, "by understanding that love isn't weakness, that connection makes us stronger, not more vulnerable, that a ruler who can't feel is more dangerous than one who feels deeply." Victor was wrong about almost everything. Leadership that values both strength and heart. That's what I offer. Not perfection, not invulnerability, just honest commitment to protecting what matters. The rulers were quiet, measuring his words against tradition, against their own understanding of how power should work. Then slowly King Ironwood inclined his head. "Acceptable," the ancient king said. "Strength comes in many forms. Your form is no less valid than another's." The other rulers followed his lead, acknowledging Marcus's right to rule, accepting his vision of what a kingdom could be. It wasn't unanimous approval. Some faces showed doubt, but it was enough. Recognition that he'd survived the ultimate test and emerged still capable of command. Catherine approached Marcus privately as the other rulers dispersed. "That alliance we discussed? I think Ironwood Kingdom would be honored to formalize it. Trade agreements, mutual defense, and perhaps most importantly, friendship between realms that value both strength and connection." "Thank you," Marcus said, "for standing with us, for seeing through Victor's manipulation." "Thank you for showing that another way is possible," Catherine replied. "I learned something from watching this, about what leadership can be when it's not afraid of its own heart." She left, the courtyard slowly emptying, until it was just Marcus, Seraphine, Emma, Cade, and Thalia, the core group who'd survived Nightmare together. "So what now?" Cade asked. "Now we rebuild," Marcus said. "Properly this time. No more secrets, no more hidden trauma. We acknowledge what happened, honor Owen's memory by supporting his family, address the ways Victor's ideology infected our thinking, and we build something better." "That's going to be a lot of work," Cade observed. "Good thing I have help," Marcus replied. He looked at his brother in arms. "You're my Lord Commander officially now, not just de facto. I need someone who questions me when I'm wrong, who tells me truth even when it hurts, who remembers that we're rulers, but also people." Cade gripped his shoulder. "Brothers who bleed together." "Stand together," Marcus finished. "Always." 3 days passed before Marcus truly felt like he could breathe. 3 days of managing realm business, of explaining to the court what had happened, of addressing concerns and questions and fears, of being the king his people needed while his own trauma was still raw. But on the 4th day, he took time for himself, for Seraphine, for Emma, for the family that had been ripped apart and stitched back together. They went to the memorial garden, to the stone that still bore Seraphine's name, even though she stood alive beside it. Emma played among the flowers while Marcus and Seraphine sat together on the bench he'd spent 5 years visiting alone. "We should remove it," Seraphine said, gesturing at the memorial stone. "It's strange having a marker when you're alive." "Or we leave it," Marcus suggested. "As reminder, the woman I married did die in that fire. Not literally, but symbolically. You survived, but you changed. Became someone who knew how to hide, how to protect, how to carry trauma and keep moving. That's not the same person I bonded with." Seraphine was quiet, then softly, "You're right. I'm not her anymore. Any more than you're the young king who thought grief was something you could control through discipline. We're both different people than we were." "Does that change how you feel?" "No," Seraphine said, "because the bond adapted. It's not the same bond as before. It's stronger, tested, purified by literally the worst thing blood magic could throw at us. We know now that it can survive anything. That's worth more than easy love that was never challenged." Marcus pulled her close. "What about your royal abilities? Are they returning?" "Slowly," Seraphine said. "Talia thinks the purification process healed some of the damage. I can feel them again. Distant, but present. Maybe in a few months I'll have full access. Until then, I'm still mostly powerless. I'll love you either way." "I know," she said. "That's why it works." Emma approached them, holding flowers she'd gathered. "For Mama's other grave," she announced, "because the person she was deserves flowers even if she's not there anymore." Marcus and Seraphine exchanged looks, amazed at their daughter's insight, at the way she understood complex emotional truth at age 6 better than most adults ever would. They placed the flowers on the memorial stone, all 3 of them together, honoring the past while embracing the present, acknowledging loss while celebrating survival. "What happens next?" Seraphine asked as they walked back toward the palace. We live, Marcus said simply. We heal. We build. We make sure Emma grows up in a realm that values love as much as strength. We honor Owen's memory by being worthy of his sacrifice. We prove Victor wrong by showing that emotion and leadership aren't mutually exclusive. We survive. That's a lot of surviving. We're good at it, Marcus replied. Apparently. 1 month later, Marcus stood on the palace battlements at sunset. The same place he'd stood countless times over 5 years. But everything looked different now. Same stones, same view of the valley below, different meaning. Seraphine joined him, moving with grace that was almost supernatural now, her abilities returning degree by degree. Soon she'd access her full royal bloodline power. Soon the realm would have their queen fully restored. "The council approved your proposals," she said. "Elder training program for the young ones, support fund for military families, partnership with the village healers. You're really changing things." "We're changing things," Marcus corrected. "You're the one who drafted most of those proposals." "True," she admitted. "It's nice, having purpose beyond hiding, contributing instead of just surviving." Emma appeared between them, took both their hands. The trinity they'd formed in the rune circle, the family that magic couldn't break and ideology couldn't destroy. "I had another dream last night," Emma said. Her prophetic gift had stabilized after the purification. Now she saw clearly instead of in fragments. "Good things are coming. Hard things too, but mostly good. We have to work for them, but they're there, waiting for us to reach them." "What kind of good things?" Marcus asked. Emma smiled mysteriously. "The kind you build, not the kind that just happen, but they're real. I saw them, saw us happy, saw the realm strong, saw people I don't know yet who will matter. It's like looking at a map of where we could go if we make the right choices." Marcus looked at Seraphine over their daughter's head, saw the future in her eyes. Not certain, not easy, but possible, real, worth fighting for. "Then we make the right choices," he said, "together." Below them, the realm moved through evening routines. Nobles and commoners mixed together in the capital square, trading goods, sharing meals, building the community that was more than just court politics. That was family in the broadest sense. Cade appeared at the battlement tower entrance. "Your Majesty, council session in 30 minutes. Border Patrol reports to review." "I'll be there," Marcus said. Then to Seraphine and Emma, "Duty calls." "Go," Seraphine said. "We'll be here when you're done. We're not going anywhere." Marcus kissed her, picked up Emma for a hug that made her giggle, then headed toward the council chamber, toward responsibility and leadership and the daily work of being king. But he carried them with him, Seraphine's presence in his heart, Emma's prophecy in his mind, the knowledge that he'd survived the worst and discovered something precious in the survival. Love wasn't weakness. Connection wasn't compromise. Leading with heart didn't mean leading without strength. Those were the lessons Victor had never learned, the truths Marcus had discovered through fire and blood and magic that tried to kill what mattered most. In the council chamber, maps waited, reports waited, decisions that would affect lives and futures waited. Marcus settled into his chair at the table's head, let command settle over his shoulders like comfortable weight. Cade took his position at Marcus's right. The council members filled their seats, ready to address realm business the way they did every evening, routine and responsibility, and the unglamorous work of keeping people safe. "Border situation first," Marcus said. "Blackwater Kingdom has been quiet since the ceremony, but quiet doesn't mean harmless. Cade, your assessment?" The session proceeded. Political discussions, resource allocation, mundane details that made up most of leadership. Not dramatic confrontations or blood magic or prophecy, just steady daily commitment to doing the work. But when the session ended and Marcus returned to his chambers, Seraphine was waiting, and Emma was asleep in the next room, and the bond burned warm and pure in his chest, and tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities. This was what victory looked like. Not dramatic triumph, not crushing your enemies, not vindication or glory. Victory was surviving, was building, was choosing love even when fear seemed more rational, was standing with people who mattered and doing the work required to protect them. Marcus stood at his window, looked out over the palace he'd defended for 5 years broken and was now defending whole, felt Seraphine's arms wrap around him from behind, felt complete in a way he'd forgotten was possible. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For surviving. For hiding when you needed to. for coming back when it was time, for being brave enough to walk into that rune circle knowing what it cost, for everything. "Thank you for never giving up," Seraphine replied, "for keeping the bond alive when everyone said it should be dead, for building the kind of realm our daughter can grow up in safely, for proving that another way was possible." They stood together as night settled over the kingdom, two people who'd been ripped apart and stitched back together, two souls who'd survived when survival seemed impossible, two mates whose bond had been tested by literally the worst magic could create and had emerged not just intact, but stronger. The bond between them burned silver in the darkness, permanent, purified, unbreakable. Not because magic said so, not because prophecy decreed it, but because two people had chosen each other across every obstacle, had refused to let separation become permanent, had walked into fire and come out forged stronger. This was their truth, their victory, their future. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.